What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Cartoon Season. I am Tyler, and this is, of course, where we get to talk about animation, have a good time, talking about some tunes. Did you know, and one thing I always found weird, to first just derail everything, Looney Tunes is spelled Tunes. Most people don't know that. Most people feel like it's spelled Toons. If they already guessed, they would lose. They would lose that game show question. And that's because, man, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's because they are in conjunction, or at least like not quite a response, but it is kind of like an offshoot of Merry Melodies. Okay, Merry Melodies, which is another thing that Warner made, which has like the Looney Tunes in it somewhat. Looney Tunes might have been like a rebrand. I don't quite remember the structure of everything, but Looney Tunes comes from a show called Merry Melodies. Melodies also, music. And I'm pretty sure this was first used, Merry Melodies I think was first like a vehicle for music. It was for like people showing off their music almost. Until they had animations over it. Yeah, it was something like that. It was some sort of like marriage of animation and music, and so they called it Merry Melodies. And then I don't remember exactly how Looney Tunes spun off from that, but then they called it Looney Tunes, and of course they kept it Tunes because it was like, oh, because it's from Merry Melodies, it's from the music aspect, but tunes, like tunes, it's a homophone. No, I don't think that's a homophone. That's what. Anyway, talk about some tunes. We got cartoons and anime, movies and shows. We got a big Venn diagram there. Today we're hitting the spot of a anime show called Sword Art. Sword Art Online, first season. This is a show that I feel like, oh man, I've heard so much about. I've heard so much about this show. I've heard actually from my good friend Ray, which we do a podcast together called Untitled and Focused. We talk about mostly anime, video games, books, movies, all that stuff. Go check that out. That's back from a very long hiatus. Go check that out. But yeah, he told me a lot about Sword Art over the years, and he always tells me that first half of Sword Art is always really good. Like any season, pick any season of Sword Art. First season is always, or the first half of the season, really good. Second half of the season, not good. Waste of your time. But I finally gave Sword Art a try because it is one of the more popular anime in existence, and I could like it. We don't know. Who's to say? And today I'm going to talk about Sword Art. A few of the main topics will be, I want to discuss if you would play this game. I do want to talk about some the idea of OP characters. I also want to touch a little bit on the Kirito and Asuna relationship. So that's always really nice. And then obviously, like we do with that whenever it comes to seasons of shows, we're going to talk about some predictions for season 2. Before we get into that, always want to remind y'all that you can find more episodes of this on the Tiger T YouTube channel. Or you can, of course, go to pretty much anywhere that you listen to podcasts. We got them everywhere, And of course, there's also a Tiger T Twitter and also my personal Twitter. If either of those interest you, mostly a good place to recommend some sweet content you want to see. Good place, go there. But yeah, we got season 1 of Attack on Titan, and would you play this game? It's an interesting question. Gamers do have this fascination with complete immersion. I think that's a big reason why VR is a thing. You want to be in the game. That's always the end goal, right? Whenever you see these movies about games, always like, you gotta be in the game. Could you imagine if we could be in the game rather than just holding a controller and controlling the game? You'd be in it. You actually experience it. There's not enough immersion. I think that's a lot where this show comes from. I think a lot of like the isekai shows where you go into a game, that's always appealing to a lot of gamers because it's something that would be cool if we could do in real life, right? The thing that sucks about this though is that if they die in the game, they die in real life. See, that I think would be the checkout for me. I was like, okay, let's go into a game. You put on a VR headset. It's way more immersive than the VR we have today because it's the future. It actually feels like you're in the game. But the moment that they introduce the idea of, well, if you die, if you were to happen to get to your HP reaches 0, you die in real life. That'd be it. Wouldn't touch it. Wouldn't ever think about that game ever again. That's crazy to me. Now, obviously, these people didn't have a choice. They were thrust into it, and while they were already in the game that they loved, they were trapped, and now you die in real life, you die in the game. After a month, over 2,000 players were dead. Crazy. 2,000 people. You imagine 2,000 people? Can't even imagine what a room full of 2,000 people looks like, And then you may also have to watch your entire party just die, like Kirito has done, I think multiple times at this point. Very traumatizing. So it's like that question I had earlier, would you play this game? Most people probably say no. I think the average rational human would say no. Just because of the very, very extreme possible consequences. But I do feel like if this was stripped of that, I think most people would say yes. I think going into a game, even a game like this does seem kind of generic. But I mean, it's not really any different than your typical MMO, right? I mean, you got yourself, you got your stats, you got this cool like upgrade system, and you got your party where you can go on like a raid sort of thing. I know this is less so with raids and more so of floors of a tower, but it's an interesting question. It's something that definitely has multiple facets to it and like different variables that, if they had this, yes. If it didn't have this, no. I'm just interested. I mean, I'm more just so interested in anyone out there that would still say yes. It's like, oh, if you die in the game, you die for real. Would you play this? Yes. Please let me know if you're one of those people, because that's, you must be very confident in your gaming abilities. I put every game on easy. But then after that, we get more into the show, actually, and I do want to talk about OP characters as an idea. So I think that's something that has become more and more prevalent in the anime landscape. Giving characters overpowered stats, and let's try and play with that. I think the first one that I ever watched that was like that was One Punch Man. One Punch Man, he kills everything in one punch, right? That's his thing, and I think One Punch Man did a really good job because they paired that with, he doesn't like that he's One Punch Man. He doesn't like that he's gotten so powerful that every fight is boring to him. Like he wants a challenge. He wants to spar with someone. So you gotta play with more of a comedic aspect to a character like that, where when it comes to sword art, we have Kirito, who starts to show just being a monster. He was a beta tester, so he kind of knows a lot of the stuff already. I guess maybe the skills carried over or whatever, and so he's already a monster, right? And I don't think that originally turned me off of the show, because OP characters can be interesting. So him being like that, so okay, so what are they gonna do with this character? What is the show gonna be? Because even with the idea that you die in the game, you die in real life, it's like, well, he's OP, so he's just gonna win, right? So I guess maybe the show would come from him seeing people lose, but even then, is that enough? We immediately get hit with some spice, right? Where he defeats Li Fang or Il Fang. See, it's tough. Guys, it's tough to read because I don't know who started this, but capital I's and lowercase L's, when you type them, they look the same. It's like, come on, why in our typing system, why did we get rid of the two horizontal lines on the capital I? Come on, we can't tell them apart. So he defeats Il Fang, and he gets accused of being a beater, which is a beta tester and a cheater. Very clever marriage of two words. I think that was some nice spice to add to it, because it's like, oh, other players don't look kindly on beta testers, because they feel like the beta testers know all this information and they could be giving it to us to make us all better, especially in a situation like this where this game is real now. Like, we could die, and we feel like we could die because we were missing information that you had. You know, you could have let us in on some of these skills or some of this knowledge to help us win. You know, which is a very selfish way of thinking, I feel like. I don't feel like Kirito owes anyone anything. And, like, also, admittedly, I did not just watch the show, but, like, just because he's really good at all this stuff, that you can't just transfer that over, you know. I think, the part where their ideology falls apart is that Kirito doesn't really have secrets. He doesn't have, like, all the secret knowledge, like a secret map and, like, secret tools, and that he's, like, hoarding for himself. Like, he just is a really skilled player. Like, he has really high stats. Like, you can't just transfer stats over to someone else. But I do like that he's kind of painted as, like, a bad guy, and he just embraces it because he's like, whatever. Like, because of his past, things that have happened to him, he is okay with embracing that because he wants to be alone. Like, he wants to get through this, and part of him would probably feel really good if he's the reason why the game breaks and everyone is set free. But he's cool with being alone. And then a little bit later on, he effortlessly survives a barrage from orange players. Now, if you remember, orange players are players who do bad things. Red players are players that have killed other players, right? Orange players are just like, they steal, they attack other players, but red players are like, you've murdered. But he just effortlessly survives it. At the time, again, to make an OP main character work, I think you still have to have moments where you're not sure. Where, like, a certain fight happens or a certain enemy comes and you're like, oh, I actually don't know if Kirito's going to win this. And I think for a hot second, you think that in this moment, because there's a lot of them, and they seem pretty powerful, and they all attack at once, and you're like, oh man, Kirito's really strong, but there's a lot of people. And then even with that, like, they're slicing and dicing him, and he's taking, because, like, you can see, like, his health bar, he's taking, like, slivers of the health bar are dropping, and everyone is so scared because they're like, yo, what, this dude's a demon. We're throwing everything we have at him, and we've now shaved off 1% of his health, And at that moment, they know they've chosen the wrong side. But again, with that, for a hot second, you're like, I don't know, Kirito might lose this. He might have some trouble. Again, maybe he won't lose, but he might have to put in some effort here. It doesn't happen, but it was still a nice moment, and it was still something that I didn't look back at in retrospect and say, oh, that was dumb. He can dual wield. That's another really cool thing. Again, I think another thing you have to do with OP main characters is there does have to be surprises. I think when you introduce an OP main character, you can't just show off his abilities episode 1. But this is everything he can do. We even see something else, or something that he hasn't shown anyone before, is that he can dual wield, because a dual wielding skill, I guess, is something that, like, isn't actually in the game or something like that. Or, like, you're not supposed to be able to access that skill, but he does have it. Like, that was a great moment, especially with the fight, because they were losing the fight. Like, this is one where we didn't just think he was going to lose because of the optics. Like, we actually were in the fight and he was losing. So he busted out the dual wield skill and is able to just barely hang on and defeat the monster so that his friends will live. And he basically dies in that moment. Again, you got to keep it interesting when you have characters like this. And I think Sword Art did a really good job. He's able to, and then at the end, he's able to defeat Heathcliff, who was supposed to be OP himself. He basically is a cheater, like an actual cheater in the game, and Kirito was able to beat him. I think that is another good thing the show does, is they introduce another OP character, OP for different reasons, and we're able to see the growth and the, Kirito and Asuna kind of figuring out why Heathcliff is able to do the things he does, to be able to beat someone like him. It's just great, so I think overall, characters like this I don't think it's easy to write a show around a character like this, you know, because it can get boring very quickly. And I think for all intents and purposes, Sword Art did a really good job of keeping it interesting and not just like, oh, well, every time there's a fight, we know character's gonna win, so let's just hit fast forward a few times on this so I can get to the rest of the story, I guess. Like, no, I think there are a lot of fights where you know he's gonna win, but there's a lot of them where you don't, and even some of them that he loses, and so that introduces a whole new obstacle of like, well, now he's got to figure this out, you know. So I think overall did a really good job. I think OP characters are tough. There are many different angles that you can take a character like that, and I think Sword Art picked one that worked for at least the first season. Then I want to talk about Kirito and Asuna's relationship. You know, romance is always something that gets me when it comes to these shows. So the fact that this show has introduced a romance element is a gold star for me. So they start with having a nap in a field. Very nice. You know, that's a nice introduction to kind of both of their characters. Kirito just kind of being like, whatever, I'm chilling, you know. And then for Asuna to kind of reprimand him to be like, dude, we have stuff to do. Like, we're trapped in a game. Like, are you going to help? You know? And then for Kirito to kind of finally introduce this idea to her that, like, dude, you can, like, take a rest. Like, us being tired all the time is not going to help us. You know, and, like, Asuna herself, you can tell by, like, the clothes she wears, like, what, like, guild she's a part of. And, like, show that she's powerful, and she's obviously very, very busy and doing a lot of stuff, and more like the front lines of everything. But like for it to throw that idea into her head to be like, why don't you just take a break? You know, like you'll be good like that, you know. And then she does, and then another kind of the end cap to that moment is her waking up and finding that Kirito is still there, and the reason he's still there is because he wanted to like watch over her, you know, to make, you know, because she's just, you know, maybe a little sexist, I guess, but like she is a girl, and like her just napping in a field by herself, you know, someone could come up on her and maybe attack her or something, you know. So like Kirito still being there, you know, you see that Asuna is very, very appreciative of that, where he didn't have to because they don't know each other, you know, they're not friends. So that's a really nice start to their dynamic and their eventual relationship. Asuna convinces Kirito to team up with her food. That's another really nice moment. You know, I think this relationship is nice. I think that's like the best word I can use for it, and like not in a bad way, just like it's really nice, like of how everything kind of falls together, you know. Because again, like I said earlier, Kirito is not someone that wants to have a team, because I think, you know, he's afraid of the implications of that, and you know, Asuna sees him as an ally and like sees him as strong, and like you know, he wants to team up, and then so she just gives him food. And that's great because on one thing it shows just how simple Kirito can be, but also it shows the skill of Asuna, where again I guess I just for a second I thought about the kind of like sexist application, the sexist you know, in insinuations of this, where like the female character is good at cooking, but like that's another really cool thing where it's like Kirito's not good, you know. So like in that moment, Asuna giving him that food and him being like, how did you get this? And she's like, oh, I made it. And he's like, what? What do you mean you made this? What did you make this with? How did you do that? You know, and like also them being in a video game, and he's just like, how did you make this taste like it does in real life? And like it's just so cool because like that's another skill that he's obviously never like gone into before, and she's over here like, oh yeah, I love cooking, I love having that skill. And like also from a video game perspective, I mean, I haven't watched this, I didn't watch this recently, but like in a lot of video games, like food can be more than just health, like it can add like different status effects and stuff. So like that's a very useful skill for a character to have. After surviving being poisoned by Kirito, they kiss and agree to marry. Very nice. Again, a very tense scene, you know, with the poisoning and with the betrayal and everything. Like, I never really trusted that man. I think it was super smart for that whole thing to happen, but props to Kirito for pulling that off and like poisoning the one dude and then getting to Kirito as well. Like, he a very successful thing. Very successful mission for him for the most part. But I do like the ending of it, where of course, how does Kirito get out of it? Asuna was keeping tabs on him, and Asuna saves him. In that moment, they, everything kind of whirlwinds together to the moment of them kissing and agreeing to marry. Them finally realizing that they are meant for each other, and also the I don't know, just like them being in that world and it being like, yeah, this is our life. Like, we are not getting out of this anytime soon, and since we are here, our people, we know each other, we know who we are, and I think being together makes sense for us. It's all culminated into this one moment, into this one gesture, and it's, again, really nice. They find a kid and act more like a family. That was very strange to me, but I understand it from like them being in this weird video game world, and them being trapped here, and them really not knowing how long they're gonna be here for. So I'm being like, let's not have like some sort of family life. And then Asuna sacrifices herself to save Kirito from Heathcliff. That's another moment where, again, that just strengthens their relationship, to show that they would sacrifice themselves for each other. I think that's one of the more, I guess, common ways that like writers can show how strong a bond is between two people by, I'd risk my life for you, but it works here. And then there's another name. I hate pronouncing names. Nobuyuki. That's what I'm gonna say. Intends to marry Asuna Nakoma. Oh man, bad man. I'm glad I didn't know how to say his name. Bad man, terrible guy. That was a weird. That kind of hits the weird second half of the show. That like kind of proves my good friend Raymond. That kind of proves his theory right. That like, it's just a weird story. Like in a coma. Like it's not okay. Like that is the definition of non-consent. Literally impossible. Not only saying no, you can't even say anything. Can't even say anything. So like that was terrible, awful. And he abuses her in front of Kirito. Like it's just a part of the show where you just watch it and you're like, can I skip through this? Can I just fast forward? I don't want to watch this. But past all of that, again, like them in real life, they even fall for each other in real life, which is nice. Not outside the game, or not always inside the game, and just the real world things that now Kirito would do for Asuna. Now that she's still trapped in the game in this weird coma, and that he would do stuff in the real world, that he would find a way to save her in real life. Again, it is one of the more simpler ways to show, the strength of a bond between two characters, but he did it, but like it happened twice on opposite ends, on like opposite realities almost, so it's just nice. It's just great. The relationship is great. This is one that I have heard bad things about, but I still do really hope that they don't destroy her character. One of the last episodes I discussed, what did I talk about? Attack on Titan Season 1. And I talked about how I really hope that they don't destroy Mikasa's character and just make her kind of like a lapdog for Eren, because I think it could turn that way and I really don't want it to. I've kind of heard some things that does happen to Asuna, which really sucks, because Asuna's another really strong character, very much an independent character. She was all of these things before she met Kirito, and she's continued to be throughout the show. Yes, the ending, she did need Kirito to save her, but I think that worked with the plot. It wasn't like, I didn't really see it as just another generic damsel in distress, because also she saved him multiple times in the show. It wasn't always one-sided. It was, happened both ways. So like I didn't really look at this like ending little mini arc as like a detriment to her character. But yeah, I've heard some bad things about her character, so I just really hope they're exaggerated. At the very best, hope they're exaggerated. And then move on to the inevitable season 2 predictions. Got a few for you. Weird that they would go back into one of these types of games. Yeah, that was something that I was discussing with Ray the one day. I just think it's odd. I think it's odd that they would go, because like the end of the show, I mean, we've now walked into 2 different games at this point in just the first season that they get trapped, or there is some weird stuff going on. The first game they got trapped. The second game was like a really weird conspiracy plot for that whole like Nobuyuki guy. Like I don't know. I feel like at this point, at the end of season 1, them being like, and now we're gonna jump back into this game and have fun. Like, nah, I don't know if I would. I don't know if I would do that. I don't know if I would ever jump into a game ever again. I'd play a game, give me a controller. But like, I don't know if I'd ever jump into a game ever. Never put a headset on again. I'd be afraid to put hats on, like we don't know. We don't know what technology is in this hat. And then again, like, but to kind of contradict that, because of the nature of the show, I don't really know what else SAO could be. Like I know there's multiple seasons, there's like different spin-offs of this show and everything. While I don't think it's smart for them to go back into a game like this, I don't know what else Sword Art Online as an idea could be. Like, in its description, it is a anime where characters have to be in a game. So I guess season 2 is where they get stuck in a game again. Like, I don't, because again, what else is the show gonna be? Is it just gonna be a second season of them having fun being in a game, and like, oh man, I gotta beat this boss? Like, I guess it could be, but I think it's gonna be a lot more difficult to make that exciting after having a season 1 where the hook is they got trapped in the game and they gotta get out. And then I think we may see a more organic progression, since they're starting at floor, I don't know why I said floor 100, floor 1. Why did I say floor 100? I don't know. Because they are kind of going through the game from the start again. So I think we could see us actually, them put more detail into them grinding through the floors, because that was one of the small gripes I had with the main arc of the show, was that I think they blew through the floors way too quickly. Like, it was like episode 5 and they were already on floor 50. I'm like, there's 20 more episodes of this. How long are they gonna go through these other 50 floors? I understand why they paced it that way, given what the show became, but I think it's definitely possible for season 2 to be more of like, okay, we're actually seeing him go through the floors more and actually deal with more of the video gamey aspects of the plot rather than the we're trapped in it plot. And then, yeah, like I said here, maybe they'll actually focus on the game, because there's no more real world villain. Of course, we could always get another real world villain again. It would make sense as to what SAO could be. Oh, it's trapped in the game. But I think it would be nice for them to focus more on the game itself and create a villain within the game rather than an outside source, rather than always bringing the real world into it, I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, that's all the predictions I got. Season 1 overall pretty good. I think that that second arc there was kind of weak and kind of weird. I don't think it made the show bad though. I still think season 1 was a pretty strong first season. I was entertained throughout the whole thing. And I'm hoping that it at least keeps that up through the rest of the seasons. Like I said, I'll watch season 2 as soon as I can. But, I'm hoping it does keep that up, hopefully. It was enjoyable. It was good. It was good action. It was good little mysteries, good relationship between the characters, good characters overall. Again, I just thought that the last third got kind of weird with that plot, and the weird like Nobuyuki stuff. Didn't need that. Didn't need to see that. And also the weird like sister cousin thing where it's like, oh, we're not really family or something. I forget, because like they adopted Kirito and then like it was weird, very very weird. I hope that dies in this season. we do not have to discuss that more in the second season. But yeah, that's pretty much the show. Season 2 as soon as I can. Let me know what you thought of the first season. Let me know if you are watching it along, what your season 2 predictions are as well. See if you got any other ones. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, and that's it. Like I said, go to Tigers to YouTube or other podcast services to watch more episodes of this. Like I said, cover all types of cartoons and anime, movies and shows, of course. Let me know what else you want to see me do, obviously in the comments or on Twitter like I mentioned. Please go also check out the other podcast I do with my friend Ray, where we talk mostly about anime, but also sometimes about movies, books, video games, all types of stuff. That is back from a long hiatus, so I am trying to promote it as much as I can because it is back and better than ever. Yeah, I think that's it. So till next time, watch season 2 of the show, and let me know what else you want to see me do.